Alright, you filthy animals. Some peeps have been waiting for me to do a build on what I'm using this league for my Necromancer, and it's changed not too much from last league, but last league also there weren't as many bullshit enemies that the GGG had jacked the fucking HP up on. So this build is a little bit different. Also, there was a little bit of a sneak item that GGG put in, and if I can get it open here, called the Mother's Embrace, and I'll explain what this does shortly. But there's a reason why I've got essentially 4 combat utility flasks on a Necromancer right now, and it comes down to this belt allows you to summon minions, which then auto casts your flasks, and pretty much these flasks then apply to your minions for an increased duration time, in this case 66%. So when I do this, which is cast on channeling, every time I do that, a flask gets popped and my minions get the buff, which basically amps up my meth fucking cocaine addict minions, which you would have seen in the B-roll, helps me get through T15 plus maps pretty easily, considering the amount of I guess increased damage and HP and everything else. Also allows you to sustain fights for a significant amount of time. What I'll go into further is that this has also got 1400 life regeneration on what is almost a 6000 life HP life pool, or EHP is 6020 give or take, with 1000 health, which also gives me the 2% damage dealt leached back by my 12 zombies as well. Anyway, let's get into this build guide and help you guys get on the path of creating a summoner that kicks fucking ass. Alright, so let's get into the armor that you'll need to make this build work. So obviously, this being a Baron build, you're going to need a Baron. The benefits of obviously using the Baron is it's +2 to any socketed minion gems. It gives you that 20 to 40 strength that you need. Obviously you need to get to 1000 strength to be able to use a Baron effectively. 50% of your strength is added to your minions, basically buffing up your minions, well, not tenfold, but significantly based off your strength. Also gives you +1 to raise zombie per every 300 strength. So obviously the more strength you stack, the better off you are. And the biggest thing is once you get to 1000 strength, your zombies now leech 2% of their damage dealt. So if they're doing a lot of damage, then they're kicking ass and you're getting health back off of it. The second item that you're going to need, I used basically an astral plate. If you look at the POB, which I'll attach, I basically went for a 10% life increase modifier, resistances, and also I think 112 base life on this as well. Realistically, this is just to push my life pool up. I believe I've got some life regeneration on mine as well, just to get me to that 1400 life regen point. The next thing you're going to need is Meganord's Vise Steel Gauntlets. This is going to give me armor. This is going to give me 100 flat strength, which is what I need to stack strength. It's also going to give me 2% life per second regenerated with at least 400 strength, which again is going to up my life regeneration. The third thing that you're definitely going to need is Elberon's Warpath Soldier Boots. Now, you do get 1 to 80 chaos damage to attacks. Now, I'm not too sure if this applies to minions or not. Potentially it does. I'm not 100%. But it does give you an increase to armor. It also gives you 20 ES, which is essentially nothing in this case. But it does give you some chaos resist, which is good versing some of the new, what they call them, Elder Slayers in this league. 20% movement speed, +1 to skeleton, and we're using skeletons, so these are relevant. And up to 18% increased strength, which again is going to increase your strength pool, which you need for this build to work. And finally, the last thing that we're going to use is the Mother's Embrace. This is a new item in 3.9, and what this does, it gives you up to 35 strength, it gives you health, it gives you cold resist, and this is where this one's really cool, and I don't know why nobody has picked up on this so far. It allows your minions to use your flasks when they're summoned, and this is particularly important because we're using cast on channel, which means when we use Cyclone, we're channeling and we're casting our skeletons. Now the benefit of this is every time skeleton is cast, they're using a flask, in this case the utility flask. This doesn't work with health flasks. The health flasks are reserved for you. You do use your mana flask though, and basically it charges out the flask at a reduced rate and gives it an increased duration of flask effectiveness. So as you're killing enemies, generating flask charges, as you cast your cyclone, you're then evaporating those charges to your minions and basically feeding them a constant trickle down of flasks, which also means if you're using 4 utility flasks and that's applying to your minions, you only need to remember to use 1 flask, which is to regenerate your health when you're almost fucked. And that's the coolest thing about this so far. Okay, so weapon and offhand, this is pretty easy, this one. I love using the Femur of the Saint. The reason why I like this weapon, in this case we're going to get 1% block chance per skeleton and 0.6% life regeneration per zombies. Now we're going to raise about 12 zombies up, which means this is going to be fucking dope. The other advantage of using this is it's an automatic +2 to the level of socketed minion gems in this staff, which means I usually put my zombies in this, which means you're going to get around about, you can get up to about level 23, 24 zombies by using this staff without any other gear modifying attributes on your minions. So basically you're amping up your minion damage straight off the bat. The other advantage is obviously having 2 6-link skills, so you have your zombies sitting in here, and then you'll have your skeletons casting from your chest, and we'll go into that when we look at the skills. Very simple one. You can use other gear, but that will mean you'll have to use another guide because this build is contingent on using this stuff. Okay, so for this build, jewelry is really contingent on what you want to use. Pretty much you're going to find your life regeneration, your resistances, extra health, any other bonuses that you want contained within your jewelry. I believe I'm using vermilion rings, which give you up to 7% base increase in health, total health pool, and then I've got base health rolled on that with resistances. Now as far as the amulet, I think I'm using a marble amulet. The reason why is obviously more health regeneration. Now what's important to note is you will need to put Golem's blood on your amulet, and this will come at a cost, in the cost of 2 gold anoints. Now when I did it, they were about 125 chaos, gold oil to anoint it with that buff. So that's going to be the most costly part about your rings and your amulet. But that's pretty much all there is to amulets on this one. There's nothing too crazy. They're pretty much filling in the gaps of where you're using uniques in other areas of this build. Okay, so the next part's going to be a bit more costly. Jewels. This build is very, very jewel heavy. So you're going to need a Brawn Crimson Jewel. This is going to buff your increase to strength and your increase to dexterity. Now you will need a little bit of dex to get this to work with Cyclone. So far I can only push mine to level 10. It's not critical on this build. You just need Cyclone to basically work. That's it. Level 10's fine. But you will need strength. And unfortunately, strength comes at a cost, and that's your intelligence. Now this can bust some builds depending on how much intelligence you need in other areas. If you don't follow this guide exactly, then you might run into some balancing problems. Might of the Meek, I'll explain where this basically is used, but the purpose of this is to give 50% effect to non-keystone areas of the passive tree. And there's an area in particular that we don't use any keystones, because what it basically also does is nullifies keystones, so they're useless. There's an area that will use that most definitely. And finally, the efficient training jewel, and these are about nearly 80 chaos a piece. So this one's going to cost what, 160 to 240 chaos. This is going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to get these initially, and in this particular league they're expensive and difficult to get from traders at certain points. But you will need these. These are critical. Finally, I use a Watcher's Eye. There's a reason for this. Basically, I get the Watcher's Eye with the Vitality roll, which gets me an additional up to 150 Vitality, 150 life regeneration, base life regeneration per second. And then I believe you can also get a Pride roll on these too, where possible. If you can't, then get a flask roll for using Vitality as well. Okay, flasks are pretty cool on this build because they're actually relevant. They buff our zombies and our skellies. So obviously for survivability I'm using Blood of the Kurai. This is just a really good health flask, fast acting, and obviously regenerates all your health once the flask effect runs out back to 100%. Now, for auto triggering, I'm using an Atsiri Promise. This gives chaos damage and chaos leech to my minions. Lion's Raw Granite Flask also gives knockback and physical damage to the minions. Silver Flask enables them to have Onslaught. Now, you can roll different attributes depending on what you want to do. This will Onslaught the minions, and a Sulfur Flask will increase their damage by 40%. And in particular, this one is very, very useful in this build. Your minions are just going to pop off with this. Alright, for skills on this build, in the helm we're going to use a Carrion Golem, a Chaos Golem, Meat Shield Gem, and Fortify. Now you can switch out the Fortify and you can switch out the Meat Shield depending on what you want to do. I use Meat Shield because it allows those Golems to take Taunt against enemies, so I'm less of a target. Chest, we're going to use Summon Skeletons, Fortify, Cast while Channeling, Multi-Strike, Melee Physical Damage, and Cyclone. Now, I use Fortified as now you could use another damage modifier, but I find Fortify is really good because not only do your Skeletons get Fortify, you get Fortify, which gives you more survivability. For the staff, or the femurs, I use Raise Zombie, Multi-Strike, Minion Speed, Fortify, Feeding Frenzy, Melee Physical Damage. Now, where possible, if you can get the Awakened Multi-Strike, that will make this build even more OP. I haven't managed to get one because they're worth 60x, and I do not have 60x to burn like that at this point. Boots, I use Desecrate, Spirit Offering, Immortal Call, Cast when damage taken. Essentially, Desecrate is leveled up on its own to its maximum level. This is so I can cast zombies whenever I want. Now, Spirit Offering, that auto cast with Immortal Call. Pardon me. Normally with Immortal Call, you want to run that up to about 5. Same with Spirit Offering, and cast when damage taken 1 or 2, so that triggers more often. The Spirit Offering gives chaos damage, 20% chaos damage to your zombies, and it also gives them energy shield and increased survivability, which is what we want to do. Essentially, the way that I've spec'd this build will allow your zombies to not die on taking bosses and allow them to leech more. And with flask popping automatically, they are essentially walking gods among everything. I think each zombie right now has about 6,000 to 7,000 HP, and they have huge amounts of leech and resistance. Finally, we're going to use on the boots, Vitality, Pride, Enlighten, and Flame Dash. Flame Dash is obviously going to be our main movement skill, and we need Vitality and Pride, obviously for the health regen, and Pride to increase our physical damage, and Enlighten to reduce our pooling of mana on these skills. Okay, so finally let's get into the pros and cons of this build. It's pretty safe as fuck. When you get to T15 plus, it can handle T16s and it can handle Metamorphs, which is the biggest thing. Now, you will want to be popping Bone Armor. You will have Bone Armor. I'll explain that as part of the tree spec out in the next 6 minutes of this build guide. Scales well with bullshit HP. Obviously, enemies now have a lot more HP. You're basically meeting them toe to toe in the field of battle. So they can go fuck themselves now, and GGG, thank you for increasing HP. This has made balancing builds way more difficult, especially if you want to level up. Obviously shitloads of HP regen, pardon me. Right now I'm looking at 1400, but there are ways to push it up to about, I've got it as high as 1600. Leveling up will also increase your ability to do that. Obviously, being 92 right now, I have 8 more levels, so I could just put it in Vitality regen. Self-casting flasks on minions is fucking awesome, and yeah, I don't think I need to say anything else about that. Cons is, it's not the fastest build, could be faster, but you know, it is what it is. If you want to level up, it's good for that, and take bosses down, it's good for that. If you want to blaze through maps just for currency finding, that's a different build altogether. It takes a bit of tinkering. This was a fuck around to get this to work the way that I've got it working. You still can't die to bullshit, which is really the thing. You can get one hit for 10,000 HP now, so no build is safe to that, but this one's pretty good, especially with about 60% physical damage reduction as well, or damage reduction is fantastic, and max cap resistances. You have to manually activate bone armor. That's probably still the most pain in the ass thing, and I hope at some point they have something that has the ability to auto cast bone armor for you, but it is what it is, isn't it? Alright, so let's get into the awesome shit now. So the first thing on the tree is, I'm in POB by the way, let's just drop that down. The first thing on the tree is obviously we're going to start at the starting zone for the witch. We're going to build across. Now this tree goes two different ways. What I would suggest doing is building down this pathing first, build down, and then build the rest up as you go. So we're going to pretty much by level 92 we're going to finish up with this stuff, pardon me. So pretty much we're going to build up to here, up to this intelligence node here. We're going to pick up these, this cluster down here, continue down. We're going to pick up sacrifice, we're going to pick up the health nodes, we're going to pick up the rest of this shit. We're going to leave this until last. We don't need this straight away. We're going to build down, 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 down until we get down to utmost might. That's where we're going to get our strength multiplier. We're also going to pick up Soul of Steel because we want that damage reduction that we get off that, and the armor as well. The armor is important to make this build work. Now this is not a critical node. If you want to fuck around with this, you can. From that point, we're then going to come back to where we were at this node here. And then we're going to build across, pick up these health nodes, we're going to build across, pick up these nodes here, we're going to pick up these nodes. Now you will need to get these obviously for strength, and you're not very dexterous, so you're going to need to pick up this whatever, dex node, 30 dex node. I'm not in the mood for deciphering shit. And you're going to want to pick up this this dual socket down here. Now we're going to come back to where we were here, and then we're going to build across here. We want to pick up Golem Commander because we want to run a Carrion Golem and a Chaos Golem. This is obviously also going to give us 20% increased damage overall, and is also going to basically increase the buff from these golems by 30% and give you 2 golems instead of 1. So you're going to want this. Next we'll pick up Cruel Preparations. We want to pick up Death Attunement. This is going to give us an extra zombie and an extra skeleton, which is pretty critical in our build. Then we're going to go through, pick up these int nodes. We're going to pick up Purity of Flesh. Then we want to go across. Now we want to pick the Righteous Army, Spiritual Aid, and Redemption up. This is all going to buff our zombies and also going to help us as well. I think this one just gives you zombies health regeneration. Increases and reductions to minions damage also affect you. Now this one isn't really critical, you don't really need it, but you know what, you can have it, and that's good. Redemption is obviously going to increase your minions' accuracy rating and whatnot as well. Now you also want to come down here, pick up this socket here, and then pick up Devotion. And that's pretty much the tree. Now the areas where we need, you'll see these blue areas here, these are where we socketed jewels. So first of all, we're going to want to socket an efficient training in basically each of our 3 efficient trainings where we have intelligence nodes. That will convert the intelligence nodes to strength nodes, and that's going to amp up our ability to get to our 1000 strength that we need for the Baron. Now this socket over here, we're going to want to put our Brawn gem in, and this is going to increase our strength by 6% again. It is going to reduce our intelligence, and this is, I guess, the bottleneck that you may run into depending on your gear. Now the final critical one, because we have an extra gem or jewel we don't necessarily need to use, the final one is Might of the Meek. Now the reason why we put Might of the Meek here, this increases all of these to 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, so and so. Now there's no nodes in this cluster as far, that one might be, they've changed this slightly. It used to be a medium size, now it's large. So this node here might be falling subject to the Might of the Meek, but maybe it's on the edge. I'm not 100% sure with that, but we have to travel down this pathing to get to it. Basically, anything that's this size is a keystone node is going to be nullified. This is not too bad in this case. This node is pretty much one of those ones you have to take to get through the tree. The final jewel is going to be the Watcher's Eye, which we're going to socket over here. And obviously this is going to give our our vitality increase. So in this case it's 112.4 life per second. Now I want to get a better version of this, and that will buff me further, which I might look for after I do this build guide. Now ascendancies, we'll just go up to the witch ascendancies. So ascendancies, you're going to want to start, you're going to want to come down, actually you're going to want to pick up Commander of Darkness first. That's the first ascendancy you want to get. Obviously the second is going to be Mindless Aggression. The third is going to be Bone Barrier. This is going to unlock Bone Armor for you, which gives you 2,209 additional damage absorption for all of your minions and yourself. And then finally you're going to want to get Unnatural Strength, which is on your E-Relab, which is going to unlock level 2 to all minion skill gems, which means that every minion skill, including your zombies are going to be running at level 24, your skellies are going to be running at 22, and so on and so on. You know what I'm getting at with this. You have level 24 Carrion Golem and Chaos Golem as well. That's pretty much the skill tree in a nutshell. There's not too much to say about it there. Yeah, oh, and also the calculation of DPS that I come up to, if you can see this, we'll just pull this out. This is my accountant skills coming in handy with Excel. Is about 1 million DPS, give or take. Now, the reason why is obviously each skeleton DPS is 53,000. Now, I don't know if this is accounting for flask buffing, because obviously we're flasking. Now, PoB only calculates flasks on the player, I believe, not on the minions. So the minions are being buffed again. So it could be as high as 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. That might not sound high by today's standards. It's still quite high, and it's going to do the job for you. But we're looking at, with all minions up, 12 zombies, 11 skellies at any one time, we're dropping 1 million DPS, as long as they're all bashing the fuck out of the Metamorph or the boss or whatever. So damage wise is pretty good. We've got good life regen, good damage reduction. I'll put this Path of Building up in the comments section. No, the description on the video. That's what I'm going to do it on. So you can grab the PoB, you can play around with it, do what you want. Anyway, this is my 3.9 build for this league. If you got questions about this build, post in the comments. Yeah, if you like this build, and you know you want to use it, definitely use it, and drop me a sub. I'll be doing similar builds into the future. This is pretty much my biggest build. There is another one that I'm working on, but you know, yeah, it's okay. It's not fantastic. And I may do a build guide, I may not. I was just fucking around with something else. Anyway, if you like this video and you know you want to sub, you want to like it, please do it. It gives me more confidence to create more shit. Also, put in the comments the shit that you want to see in the future. If it's more Watchstone content or something like that, please hit me up. I'm on holidays at the moment, so I've got like 6 more days where I can do this shit before I have to go back to reality and start working again. Anyway, if you don't like this video, well, you know what? I'm not going to say the usual thing I'd probably say, which is... but you know what? It is what it is. Anyway, thanks for watching, and like and sub.